Top 10 Dangerous Countries for Women. Similar statistics are discussed in the United Nations Gender Inequality Index, including the number of years of schooling a woman obtains, women's political representation, as well as rates like maternal mortality, early marriage, and teen pregnancy. Our today's video is about top 10 dangerous countries for women. We've developed a list of the 10 worst nations for women's rights using these two sets of data. We also go into detail about some of the difficulties that are particular to each setting and that Concern is attempting to address through its programming in every nation. Number 10. Pakistan. The ranking of Pakistan in terms of women's rights is up for debate between the 2020 UN Gender Inequality Index and the 2021 WPS Index. The latter places the nation 135th out of 162. It is not in perfect health, but it is not in the top 10 or even top 25 nations for women's rights. On the other hand, the nation is ranked 167th out of 170 in the Women, Peace, and Security Index. It highlights the low rates of financial inclusion for women, 7%. The average length of schooling, just under 4 years, the employment rate, just over 21%. The prevalent discrimination in societal norms and legal systems, and the high rates of intimate partner violence. The WPS observes that the disparities in women's rights at the provincial level contribute to Pakistan's low rating. The country's lowest performing provinces performed approximately 4 times worse than its greatest performing provinces, discrepancies that, according to the WPS, national statistics disguise. Number 9. Central African Republic. The decline in organized violence, which raised the sense of community safety in the 2021 WPS Index, has mostly been responsible for the slight improvement in conditions for women in the Central African Republic. There is still a ton of work to be done, though. In the CAR, women often only complete 3 years of education, and they make up less than 9% of the local legislature. Furthermore, despite a decline in organized violence, 1 in 5 women in Central Africa still experience intimate partner abuse. Other signs and obstacles to women's rights exist in CAR. 61% of women between the ages of 20 and 14 were married or in a union before turning 18 due to harmful gender customs such as early and forced marriage. Number 8. Somalia. On the 2021 WPS Index, Somalia is ranked 11th. While it has more female lawmakers than CAR, 23% of Somalia's parliament is female, there are much fewer women working there, 23% versus 68%. The indicators for achieving gender equality in Somalia's sustainable development goal are occasionally unfinished, with alarming gaps in the reporting of women's access to assets, including rights to own land, harassment and violence against women, and the gender wage gap. Other metrics that the UN publishes on do not point to success in these areas. Only 2% of women in the nation had access to safe and up-to-date family planning and birth control options, and more than a third of Somali women between the ages of 20 and 24 were married before they reached 18. Number 7. Sierra Leone. Sierra Leone has a maternal death rate that is even worse than Somalia's, with 120 women out of every 100,000 dying from complications during pregnancy or childbirth. This problem has been around for a while, and Concern has attempted to address it in some way with our initiative Innovations for Maternal, Newborn, and Child Health 2009-2016. Crises have halted progress, such as the 2014-16 Ebola epidemic, which led to an increase in unwanted teen pregnancies, even though many people in the nation are working to abolish old and archaic gender standards. Although gender-based violence has decreased significantly over the past 20 years, it still exists in many parts of Sierra Leone. Only 45.8% of Sierra Leonean women feel safe returning home alone at night in their communities, according to the WPS Index. Number 6. Sudan. The criminalization of FGM, the repeal of legislation limiting women's rights in terms of what they might wear, travel places, and do for a living, and a target of 40% female representation in the nation's transitional parliament, were all developments in women's rights that Sudan saw in the summer of 2019. Though the COVID-19 epidemic may cause progress to be postponed, this is a positive development for the nation. Only 22% of parliament in 2021, according to the WPS index, was headed by women, although this is already a significant step forward. Number 5. Chad. Chad is placed 160th out of 162 nations in the 2020 United Nations Gender Inequality Index. 20 years ago, Chad approved a law on reproductive health, which has significantly reduced the use of procedures like FGM. The typical age for a first marriage was 16 for girls and 22 for boys, according to a 2015 Concern report. Although early enforced marriage is still frequent, early marriage is a habit in our society, but a genuine danger for the girl. Pregnancy, surgery, death, and also multiple incidents of running away, one participant in a focus group for this paper observed. We've seen data like the percentage of women reporting intimate partner violence decline since that report. There is still more work to be done, particularly in the areas of political representation and education, where women often finish fewer than 2 years of formal schooling. Number 4. Republic of the Congo. The Democratic Republic of the Congo is ranked 150 out of 162 on the UN's 2020 Gender Inequality Index and 163 out of 170 on the 2021 WPS Index. Inequalities persist in many areas, and the DRC has made little progress toward achieving gender equality. Many of these disparities may be seen in the legislation, with the WPS estimating that 25% of DRC laws are biased in favor of men. In the DRC, 37% of women have reported experiencing intimate partner abuse in the previous year, with an estimated 51% of women experiencing it in their lifetime. Additionally, 37% of Congolese women were married before turning 18 years old, and 124 out of every 1,000 females in the DRC became mothers between the ages of 15 and 19 in the country. These figures are reflected in the gender-based education gap. In the DRC, men are nearly twice as likely as women to complete secondary education, at 65.8% against 36.7%. Number 3. South Sudan. Women in South Sudan are not allowed to participate in political or decision-making processes because of harmful gender norms resulting from a patriarchal culture. In the home, women have limited decision-making authority. Power disparities between the sexes are mostly caused by a lack of resource ownership and land rights. Less than 5% of women are financially active in their communities and society. The United Nations reported that South Sudan has the highest maternal mortality rate in the world, with more than one pregnant South Sudanese woman dying from complications during or after childbirth for every 100. However, the UN lacked sufficient data in 2020 to accurately rank South Sudan on its Gender Inequality Index. Number 2. Syria. Syria had historically had patriarchal gender relations before the start of the war in 2011. While they were permitted to work, women only made up a small percentage of the pre-war workforce and didn't receive the right to vote in national elections until the middle of the 1950s. A large number of Syrian women, especially in the nation's then vibrant middle class, chose to remain at home and raise families, which is consistent with the fact that in the country, marriage is still viewed as a contract between the husband and the wife's father. The country did not make honor killings illegal until 2020. Many of these gender norms have been made worse by a protracted crisis, which has also brought about many of the gender challenges that go along with conflict. The ongoing conflict in Syria, where 75 out of every 100,000 women are killed in organized violence and only 16.9% of women feel safe in their communities, is one factor in the country's low ranking on the WPS index. Number 1. Afghanistan. Afghanistan is ranked 157th out of 162 nations on the UN Gender Inequality Index and last out of 170 on the WPS Index. Many Afghan women and girls lack access to education due to more than 4 decades of conflict, instability, and regressive gender standards. Those that are permitted to attend school typically don't stay for longer than 2 years. This is reflected in the nation's level of financial inclusion for women, which the WPS rates at just 7.2%. With 35 out of every 100 women reportedly experiencing violence at the hands of an intimate partner, the nation also ranks among the worst for gender-based violence. Honor killings are prohibited here, as they are in Pakistan, our neighbor, but they are still frequently carried out. So this is the end of our today's video. Do you like it? Feel free to submit your response in our comments section below, and subscribe to our YouTube channel for more videos.